Back here on HQ Spotlight, Notre Dame hosting Navy this weekend on a 6-game win streak after starting the season 0-2. These two teams meeting for the 98th time. This go around, the Fighting Irish, they got something to lose. Their CFP playoff hopes on the line. CJ Carr has been so impressive. Jeremiyah Love, one of the all-time running backs for Notre Dame. And on the flip side for Navy, their path to the CFP, it's kind of a long shot through the American. But as mentioned, Notre Dame riding a 6-game win streak after starting the season 0-2. The Fighting Irish have won 7 straight meetings against Navy, and they're looking to make it 8 as the Rip Miller Trophy is on the line. Let's welcome in our college football analysts, Richard Johnson and Brad Crawford, for a Navy-Notre Dame preview. So Notre Dame, they make it into those CFP rankings as a 2-loss team. So Richard, kick us off. How much are those CFP hopes on the line in this matchup specifically?
It is do or die week in, week out. Every single week from here on out for Notre Dame is a playoff game. I think they can get in with 2 losses, but it's just got to be 2 losses. Their 2 losses are pretty good against Miami on the road and against against Texas A&M at home. Neither of them, they got blown out, so they were close. So I think their resume is good enough, but they've got to continue to win. It's just one of those situations. Notre Dame, I think, is getting better week in and week out over the course of the season, kind of like they did last year after taking that embarrassing loss against Northern Illinois. They've got to continue to get better, continue to win week in, week out, because I think their playoff hopes are on the line every single time they line it up from here to the end of the season.
Yeah, Richard nailed it there. I mean, it's a playoff elimination game for the Fighting Irish. However, I don't think necessarily that winning out for a 10-2 Notre Dame team gets them in the playoff. Obviously, it's going to look good from an at-large standpoint. But if the SEC has a logjam of teams with 10 wins and better victories overall against top 25 teams than what Notre Dame has, potentially that could knock Notre Dame out. The Irish were number 10 in Tuesday night's first rankings. And that's kind of a key spot there, because in the 11 and 12 spots, those are auto spots guaranteed for ACC and G5, at least according to our CBS Sports projections. So Notre Dame there, you see the next 4 games certainly winnable, but that game at Pitt coming up, just as important as Saturday night's battle against Navy.
And we can't talk Notre Dame without talking about Jeremiyah Love. Still thinking about that performance against USC earlier this year. So how crucial is his success of that of Notre Dame squad, like all in general, not only this game, but on the season as a whole, Brad?
Yeah, there's a reason Jeremiyah Love was one of the preseason Heisman frontrunners at his running back position. I mean, this Notre Dame offense really goes through Jeremiyah Love, Jadarian Price, and CJ Carr at quarterback. You mentioned it 2 weeks ago against USC, 228 yards and a touchdown, had 136 yards last week in a not-so-pretty game against Boston College for that Notre Dame offense, but they got it done and they won. When he's in prime form, he gets a heavy dose of carries. I think you'll see 18 to 20 carries this weekend against another run-heavy team in Navy. But you see there, Jeremiyah Love, he has really picked up steam these last few weeks for what I consider to be a playoff contending Notre Dame squad.
It's not just Jeremiyah Love. Brad just mentioned Jadarian Price, who's the other running back who is an absolute explosive play as well. I mean, he returned a kick earlier in this season. He is a player who gives CJ Carr a quarterback's best friend, which is a dominant running game, a running game that can itself generate explosive plays. It's huge for what Notre Dame tries to do on offense. It's huge for him getting better over the course of the season. I think this Notre Dame offense has multiple ways to beat you, and it's one of the reasons as they figure themselves out over the course of the season, you're seeing them get better. It's kind of funny. This team has kind of flipped from last year's identity, where I think the defense leaves a little bit to be desired, but the offense is really pacing this team and giving them what they need.
Let's go to the Navy side of things, because they're coming off a loss to North Texas.
I know that
my co-host Haley Sutton, who is an alumni, knows that very well.
Undefeated who, guys?
All right. But let's go back to Navy. That snapped their 10-game win streak. So, Richard, how does Navy bounce back from that?
Well, we knew that Navy's real season started last week with North Texas, and it continues with Navy as we get all the way to Army-Navy later in December. And Navy had a nice go of it and built an undefeated season, but it just kind of fell apart last week. So, look, this is a Navy team that they're going to have to deal with the fact that Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman does not mess around with this Navy team. Notre Dame, in the 4 games that they played under Marcus Freeman as head coach, 3 of them have been absolute blowouts. And so they're going to have to figure that part out. Is Navy, how do you get over the hump against Notre Dame? Last year, for instance, they turned the ball over multiple times and got absolutely blown out by this Notre Dame team. The Irish, under Marcus Freeman, don't mess around. Blake Horvath is a great quarterback for what Navy likes in their system. And Eli Heidenreich at wide receiver is a really, really fun player for them as well. So when they do go over the top, Navy can generate explosive plays. But yeah, Navy's built up this season a nice statistical profile, but as it gets real in the back half of their schedule, I think you're going to start to see some diminishing returns, unfortunately.
Yeah, you mentioned turning over the ball, and Blake Horvath, we saw it there. Had an interception and 2 lost fumbles the last time that he faced Notre Dame. Right now, 926 rushing yards, 13 rushing touchdowns this season. So, Brad, as long as he takes care of the football, how much does that dual threat ability play into this game plan against the Notre Dame defense?
Yeah, I think best case scenario in this game for the Navy offense is Horvath has his 7th straight 100-yard game. He doesn't cough it up any like what happened in last year's game. Navy got behind Notre Dame. And when you have a trap option offense like Navy does, you can't afford to fall behind by a touchdown, 14 points early in that game, because possessions with your offense are going to be limited. Blake Horvath, he's obviously the most important player on this Navy offense. When big play opportunities are there this weekend against the Irish, Navy has to take advantage. Horvath even had a 300-yard passing game a few weeks ago. So the best case is Navy has a 100-yard game with this quarterback, and Horvath does not turn the football over, because in last year's blowout loss to Notre Dame, it was their best player who made mistakes that were a bit uncharacteristic of him as a playmaker.
All right, it's time for a game pick. Notre Dame, they're favored by double digits, and that is putting it kindly. Richard, how do you think this goes down?
Yeah, I think Notre Dame wins, and I also think Notre Dame covers that 26.5. They just have a defensive plan against this Navy team that's not going to let them get off the mat. It gets Navy off the field quickly as well, because Navy tries to come in and control the tempo of the game, control the possession count of the game, and Notre Dame does not let them do that.
Yeah, for me, Navy beat themselves in last year's game. I know Notre Dame was a better team. Notre Dame eventually got to the playoff championship game. However, I think Notre Dame this weekend does beat Navy, but Navy covers 26.5. Just limit possessions, keep the ball as much as possible, if you can, out of Jeremiyah Love's hands, and most of all, just tackle well if you're Navy. You cannot let Love get outside and turn 6 or 7 yard gains into 75-yard touchdowns.
Brad, Richard, we certainly appreciated both the guys rolling with Notre Dame this week. All right, and for more college football headlines, make sure you check out the Cover 3 podcast. Week 11 Locks episode in your feed right now. You can watch by scanning that QR code on your screen.